How do you find the taste of our dishes? I understand you have dementia. Do you still have your sense of taste? Excuse me? Caught off guard by the sudden outrageous words from her, my voice broke. I just wondered if someone with dementia could truly appreciate the taste of our high-end restaurant. An unbelievable insult to my father. That's enough talk. I couldn't bear it anymore, my hands trembling with anger. My name is Kathy Kimball, 54 years old. My husband, Bob, who's the same age as me, works as a contractor just like my father did and runs his own construction firm. We've been married for 25 years, a seasoned couple celebrating our silver wedding anniversary. I'm sorry for boasting, but just like my favorite sweet chocolate, I adore my hardworking and considerate husband. Meow. Our beloved cat, Hayes, came over, wanting some attention. I'm sorry. Of course, I love you too. It's been getting quite chilly lately, hasn't it? Having these casual conversations with Hayes is a moment of healing for me. What I want you all to hear is not my boastful stories from the days when I had a slim waist, but the story of a cherished anniversary that was ruined. It was 12 years ago, when I was 42. That day, my husband and I, and my father, visited a high-end restaurant called The Blossom. Welcome. We're glad you're here. A waitress in her mid-20s with a pleasant demeanor greeted us with a polite welcome. We had a reservation for 3 at 6 p.m. under the name Kimball. Yes, we have your reservation. Let me show you to your room. Just as you would expect from a high-end restaurant, everything was perfect so far. As I was following the waitress, my father, who has mild dementia, suddenly asked, "Hey, is this my first time here?" Even though he was looking forward to coming to this restaurant this morning, it seems like his symptoms can show up anytime, anywhere. This is a place of memories, Dad. We talked about it this morning, remember? My father tilted his head, unable to remember. I wanted to taste the food at that restaurant again with my husband. These were the words my mother left behind 10 years ago, before she passed away. Yes, this was the restaurant where my late mother and father used to date when they were young. Is everything all right? The waitress asked with a puzzled look on her face. Oh, I'm sorry. My father has mild dementia, so he sometimes forgets things or becomes a bit confused. Oh, I see. In that case, please take a seat over there while I double-check the room. The waitress, who suddenly cooled down, went back inside. This wasn't the first time that the attitude of the staff changed as soon as they found out about my father's dementia. You'd expect a lack of training from staff at some random joint, but this is a well-established fine dining restaurant. Hey, come here and look outside. The fall foliage is beautiful. Yeah. My father, who is already 72, is looking at the garden beginning to be dyed in autumn colors with an innocent smile, like a young boy. I wonder if he really forgot about this restaurant. My father, who heard the restaurant would be temporarily closed by the end of this year and be rebuilt. I visited here on my parents' wedding anniversary because he said he wanted to go one more time, but I should have taken him sooner. Regret runs through my mind. Mr. Kimball, we will guide you now. The waitress who finally came out from the back called out to us. We had been kept waiting for over 30 minutes, but there was not a single word of apology from her. On top of that, we were led to a dark, windowless room filled with a musty smell. Excuse me. We had reserved the maple room with a view of the courtyard. The room was prepared under the direction of the hostess. I had a reason to reserve the maple room. Because the flower language of the maple has the meaning of precious memories. Is the maple room not available? Yes, it is currently being used by other guests. We will bring your meal in a while, so please wait. The waitress, who answered without any semblance of cordiality, loudly slammed the door shut. Huh? What? That attitude. I felt like saying a word or two, but I couldn't cause a fuss on an important anniversary at a place full of my parents' memories. I decided to switch gears and enjoy the meal. The dishes that were brought out one after another were all beautifully colored and tasted fantastic, I think. But the attitude of the waitress serving us was arrogant, and she looked rather disgruntled. No matter how delicious the food is, if the service is bad, it can have the enjoyment of the meal. My father, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Inwardly murmuring my apology, my father cheerfully comments, well, it is a fine dining restaurant after all. The food is certainly tasty. Just then, a flamboyantly dressed woman with an air of authority enters, saying, "Excuse me. I am the hostess of this restaurant." A large gemstone ring glitters on the hand. Her high, coiffed hair was reminiscent of a rooster's comb, giving off a vibe of the 80s flamboyant big wave hairstyle. Her overall appearance was more akin to a flamboyantly adorned female football player, rather than that of a traditional restaurant hostess. She is the only daughter of the deceased previous owner. After graduating from high school, she got married and lived in New Orleans, but she returned here a year ago after her divorce. I knew she had been acting as the hostess ever since. "How is the taste of our restaurant's cuisine? I heard that you have dementia. Do you still have your sense of taste?" "I beg your pardon?" At her sudden and outrageous comment, I was so taken aback that my voice squeaked. "I was just wondering if someone with dementia could appreciate the taste of fine dining cuisine." An astounding insult to my father. That's enough talk. I really couldn't bear it any longer, and I clenched my trembling hands in anger. The one most excited to come here today was my father. Yet you insult him, and that's truly disappointing. I'm deeply sorry to the chef who prepared our meal, but we don't need any more food brought out. Please bring us our bill. As though she had been waiting for my words, the hostess, in an arrogant manner, responded, "Oh, how unfortunate. But perhaps it's wise of you to leave. Here is your bill." Upon seeing the amount, I thought for a moment there must be a mistake and took a second look. What? 1,680. I couldn't help but exclaim in a flabbergasted voice. This amount is ridiculous. We only ordered the $200 per person course. When my usually mild-mannered husband raised his voice to question, the hostess responded as if it was the most natural thing in the world. That's the regular price. In your case, since you are accompanied by a person who has dementia and needs care, we charge an additional $1,000 as a nuisance fee. Excuse me? An inconvenience fee? My father didn't cause any trouble, he was just quietly enjoying his meal. Besides, isn't it offensive to call it an inconvenience fee just because he has dementia? At this point, I was at my breaking point. But the hostess persisted. Offensive? We refuse guests who don't meet our standards, like you. If we knew you were bringing a guest with dementia, we would have rejected you right away. You come in here, hide an illness, and then complain about the price. We've been dealing with customers who believe they should be treated like gods and make ridiculous complaints. I had a friend say that in Italy, the waitstaff are the gods, and the customers come second. You wouldn't last a day in Italy. With that, she spouted her outrageous philosophy. Italy. I was too taken aback to speak. Anyway, once you step over the threshold of our establishment and enjoy our cuisine, you must follow our rules. The hostess said, not allowing me to interject. But my husband, who was as furious as I was, laid out 1,700 on the table and said, "Let's just go. It's a waste of time to argue. Keep the change." The hostess counted the bills with a satisfied expression and said, "Thank you very much. Here is your receipt. Please take care on your way home." With that, she hastily left the room. As we sat, stunned and beyond anger at the hostess's cold treatment, my father said with a carefree smile, which was probably a result of his disease, "Well then, let's go home and have pizza." As we were about to make our swift exit, a man, who looked to be in his 30s and dressed like a chef, came out of another room and asked, "Are you leaving already?" "Who is he?" My husband relayed, "Yes, the hostess treated us rudely and charged us an unbelievable price." To this, the man replied, "I'm very sorry for the impoliteness. I should have introduced myself sooner. I am the manager and head chef of this place." My husband and he then shook hands. My husband explained the situation to him and showed him the receipt. "I'm terribly sorry," he said, his face paling. There seems to be a difference in management policy between the hostess and myself as the manager. We will refund you in full. He deeply apologized. That's fine. My father said. Could it be, are you? The chef stared at us as if time had stopped. You're looking well. It's good to see that you're keeping the old flavors alive. I actually had a favor to ask of you, so this is perfect timing. I'll contact you later since you're still at work. My father said, patting the chef's back, urging us to leave. Once we got into the car, I asked my father, wait, what's going on? You know the chef? Of course, I've known him since he was an apprentice at this place. Wait, what do you mean? It's all just a show, a big show, right, Bob? Yes. That explains it. I finally understood that the whole incident was an act staged by my father and my husband. Dad, don't scare me like that. I was genuinely worried that you might have forgotten about the past. I'm sorry. You know the saying to deceive your enemies, you must first deceive your friends. Anyway, we found out the truth. Now we have to punish that hostess and waitress. My father explained that he and my husband had staged the act to check on the poor service that was ruining the restaurant's reputation. 2 weeks later, the three of us revisited the fine dining restaurant. Thank you for your hospitality the other day. I am truly humbled to be personally greeted by the hostess herself today. I greeted the hostess with the brightest smile I could muster. The one with dementia? How dare you show up here again? I can't let you in today. We're expecting some very important guests, so please leave immediately. The hostess raised her eyebrows sharply, shooing us away with her hand as if we were stray dogs. Just then, welcome, we're glad you could make it. The one who emerged from the back was the manager. What? What do you mean? The hostess looked confused. These are the 3 guests who made a reservation through the president. At his words, the hostess instantly turned pale. What is your relationship with the president? He's my older brother. The one who answered her question was my father. Oh, your brother. I was unaware. I'm terribly sorry for the rudeness the other day. The one who suddenly made a frantic apology was the waitress who had been so arrogant to us previously. Ignoring the waitress who was repeatedly begging for forgiveness, the hostess bristled. The president's brother? You think such a lie would pass? The president doesn't have a younger brother. And you look older than the president anyway. I suppose lying is the next symptom of dementia. What a laughingstock. The hostess sneered. I think it's rude to judge by my bald head. Listen to the end of the story. I'm his brother-in-law. The president is the brother of my late wife and we are the same age. It must have been an unexpected story. The hostess's voice faltered. You have been away from home for a long time, not even knowing about the president's brother-in-law. How pitiful. My father looked down at the hostess with a triumphant face. My uncle, the president, who is based in my hometown, is the head of the Browns Group, which operates restaurants all over the country. He is also the person who, at my father's request to protect the shop when the previous owner died of illness 3 years ago and faced the crisis of closing down, acquired it as a group company. The current manager and chef of this shop was promoted to the new manager after my uncle acquired it, and he was trained in the kitchen by the previous owner. The difference in opinion between the new owner and the former daughter of the previous owner, who returned from New Orleans and took the position of hostess, was evident, and the reputation of the shop was declining. Of course, today's plan was also approved by the president in advance. Now you. Stop standing around and take them to their room immediately. Urged by the manager, the hostess, with a frightened face, led us to our room. The room we were shown to was the maple room, which we could not enter last time. Wow, it's lovely. The leaves in the courtyard are dyed red and it's beautiful, isn't it, Dad? Indeed, but is it okay? For me, a man with dementia, to be shown into such a lovely room? At my father's sarcastic question, the hostess was flustered. Of course, it's fine. The other day, the waitress made a mistake with the reservation, and I deeply apologize. I'll make sure to give the waitress a stern talking to. For now, please forgive me. There's still time before mealtime, so why don't I bring you some of the chef's special treats? Or perhaps you'd like a welcome drink? The hostess offered. Forget about the treats, have a seat there. I wanted to talk to you today, which is why I came early. Yes. You've heard from the chairman about the plan to tear down this place and renovate it into a new restaurant, haven't you? Yes, I have. It turns out, I've been chosen to be the owner of that new place. What? What did you just say? Seeing her wide-eyed reaction, I reinforced the statement. Therefore, all the management and personnel matters of the new restaurant will also be entrusted to my father. Got it? However, the hostess seemed to think it was a joke and returned with a laugh. Oh, you must be joking. Even if you're the chairman's brother-in-law, running a high-end restaurant is no easy task for a novice. You're quite good with wordplay. What? You're saying a novice can't handle it? You don't need to beat around the bush, it's clearly written all over your face. There's no way this old geezer can run a high-end restaurant, isn't that it? No, I didn't mean it that way. Seeing her stumble over her words, my father interjected, Unfortunately, I'm not quite as senile as you might think. The forgetfulness of dementia, a la performance. I've heard whispers about your poor service. That's why I've been playing along. What? How could you? She pulled out a handkerchief and wiped the sweat from her forehead. Furthermore, you. Yes, what is it? If anything is a bad joke, it's that coxcomb-like hairstyle of yours. This is not a coxcomb, it's modeled after a peacock. What, seriously? Not a rooster, but a peacock. Whether it's a peacock or whatever, I don't care. You may say that the height of your comb represents the pride of a high-end restaurant, but to me, it just looks like showing off. After all, what's the point of the hostess standing out the most in a place that's supposed to entertain guests? Don't you think? Sorry. Like a deflating balloon, the hostess's voice grew smaller. I launched a follow-up attack. You used to live in New Orleans, didn't you? Yes. What about it? I used to work as a receptionist at a well-established sweet shop in New Orleans where my aunts-in-laws ran. I started working there simply because I wanted to live in the city, with no awareness of preserving the shop's reputation. I angered customers with my careless attitude. It was then that I realized, it's not just about the taste, but also the spirit of hospitality that is crucial in upholding the reputation of an establishment. I learned that from the city of New Orleans and its customers. But it seems that what you learned in New Orleans is not the spirit of hospitality, but flamboyance and arrogance. I might not have any experience, but I think I am more suitable to be a hostess than you are. Upon hearing my words, my father, who had been quietly listening, chimed in. Kathy is right. Do you know why my late wife loved this restaurant? Of course, the previous chef's dishes were excellent. But it wasn't just the food that she loved. It was the warm hospitality from the hostess, the waitress, and the overall atmosphere of the restaurant that made her feel comfortable. If you were a customer, would you want to visit this restaurant as it is now? That is. I've only ever done carpentry, so I'm a complete novice when it comes to running a restaurant. But if I'm to take over, I want it to be a place that I'd want to visit over and over again. Looking at my father, who was passionately declaring his determination, I began to doubt whether he really had dementia. Huh? The hostess was standing straight, her legs fidgeting nervously. Noticing this, my father spoke up. What's the matter? Do you need to go to the bathroom? No, that's not it. For over an hour, we had been engaged in an animated discussion. Dad, it's about time for dinner. Ah, hostess, you can excuse yourself now. We're finished here. Excuse me? The new store's hostess will be this girl. You should enjoy a leisurely life in Italy, which suits your personality. Ah, the annoying fee of $1,000 I swiped from you the other day. Don't hesitate to take it as a sorting fee. The hostess tried to justify herself, sputtering out a confused excuse in response to the sudden firing announcement from my father. Wait, I didn't swipe anything. That money was a room charge, no, a deposit, and I was planning on giving it back. So, you're saying it wasn't recorded in the books? Did you also skim off the top of the sales money? Yes, but it's not a significant amount. Either the hostess was led into a trap by my father's leading questions, or she readily confessed. You fool! We'll leave the rest to the police. Yes, Dad. As I pulled out my cell phone, the hostess began to beg. Wait. I understand, I'll return the money. So, please don't involve the police. That's right, this would be your second run-in with the law, wouldn't it? I threw in my hidden card of pursuit that I had been saving. What? How did you know about that? It turns out, I had heard from the chairman that she had been exposed to the police for falsifying sales at a shop she worked at in New Orleans and that had led to her divorce and return to her hometown. The chairman, to save face for the previous store owner, had hired this prodigal daughter as the hostess, but with this being her second misconduct, it was a different story. The chairman asked me to convey this to you, deduct the money you took from your wages, and return any shortfall. Also, submit your resignation. Understood? Yes. The hostess, her bangs falling over her face, nodded. If you understand, then leave. I can't walk properly. My legs are numb. What? You were fidgeting because your legs were numb? From just an hour of standing in the same portion, pathetic. You really are not cut out to be a hostess. The hostess was helped out of the room by the manager who had been waiting outside and my husband, her legs wobbly. Dad, your act was worthy of an actor. You were so passionate about becoming the store owner. But I never thought that you would make up a story about me becoming the hostess of the new store. The part about my father taking over the management of the new store was a fabricated story that was discussed with the chairman. Right. I got so caught up in it, I completely believed I was the owner. But the part about you taking over as hostess isn't made up. You have a spirit of hospitality, don't you? With that, my father laughed. I was honestly surprised at the unexpected turn of events, but I was also very excited. At that moment, the manager and head chef personally brought out the food. This is the meal I promised to make for you and your wife when I became a full-fledged chef. Inspired by your loving relationship, I've named it the Lovebird Platter. In a thoughtful move by the manager, a meal was also prepared for my mother. Thank you, manager. I'll be counting on you from here on out. My father slapped the manager's shoulder several times, his eyes welling up with tears. Hazel, I've kept you waiting for so long. As I looked at my father, who was sitting before Mom's meal, savoring his shot of whiskey while reminiscing about the old times, I felt a lump in my throat. Then my husband, who had been left out until then, scratched his head and said, I never had a moment to shine, did I? Come on, you had your moment in the end, didn't you? Our laughter echoed around us. A few months later, our new restaurant opened. It was a barrier-free establishment, accessible even to the elderly. Leaving behind its high-end aspirations, the restaurant was reborn as a more down-to-earth establishment, a transformation my husband helped bring to life with the new construction. I, in turn, became the new hostess of this rejuvenated place. My father, our first customer, had said, "This restaurant will surely become a place of memories for you too." As we all admired the new establishment, the former hostess, who had been ousted from the restaurant, watched from the shadows. Her iconic peacock hairstyle was gone, but her burly figure was as noticeable as ever. Turns out, her claim of having friends in Italy was a lie, and her tales of Italian customs were simply plagiarized from magazines. Word about her embezzling the restaurant's revenue and subsequent firing spread through the town in no time. Apparently, she couldn't find a new job and is scraping by on the meager inheritance her parents left her. Now, our restaurant, the New Blossom, has become a famous restaurant, known across the country for its excellent food and hospitality. I've handed over the role of the hostess to the head chef's wife, and now I assist in running the establishment from the sidelines. The hostess passed the torch to the manager's wife, and I now support the restaurant from behind the scenes. Take care of Hayes. This was the last thing my father said before he passed away 5 years ago. Our beloved cat, Hayes, was found by my father 12 years ago on his way home after dining at the Old The Blossom. Dad, who said Hayes was the reincarnation of Mother, named her after Mother's name, Hazel. Even as his dementia progressed and he began to forget many things, he never forgot about Hayes until his last breath. Dad, Hayes has become a little old lady, but she's still going strong. Please watch over us, along with Mom, okay? In the cold winter, there's nothing like enjoying a s'more by the heater, right? Nah, if we're talking about sitting by the heater, it's all about the hot chocolate. Oh really? Here's to another year filled with laughter.